So we're approaching, can everyone hear me? Okay, great. We're approaching our start time. While we're waiting for the Rigor and Responsibility group to make a quick talk, just a call out to those who want to participate in the workshop to please look at the instructions on the screen, email Pat here, because there's some material that will make the workshop possible for you, because this is kind of a dual kind of presentation format, but also a hands-on interactive workshop. So if you do anticipate trying to develop your own PowerApp, just go ahead and follow these instructions here, and we'll get you set up while we wait for our friends to give a quick talk.
Welcome to this session. I'm not really proud of it, but I am here to introduce our Committee on Co-Rigor and Reproducibility, also known as CCO, one of the groups that I should not be saying because I have a speech impediment. So now you remember it as the group that, oh yeah, she couldn't say that. Anyway, I am one of the co-chairs of the Committee on Co-Rigor and Reproducibility, and I am here to tell you about our group and what we do. So you may have noticed, if those of you who have been part of ABRF for a couple years, we do an annual, semi-annual survey on whether or not rigor and reproducibility is important to your cause. You guys have seen this. We've published on it. That's one of the things we do. Our goal is to increase awareness and provide best practice recommendations for the technologies. So how to keep your studies rigorous, how to make them reproducible. And I want to tell you really, really quick, because I'm probably already out of time, about a pilot we're doing with the American Association for Cancer Research, where right now ABRF is providing technical reviewers for their manuscripts when they get before publication. So this way we can make sure that the methods are being reported on accurately so that they are reproducible. So there's enough detail in them, and that we have actual technical experts, which are you guys, if you're in the genomic space right now, to make sure that the standards, that the studies themselves are as rigorous as they could be. So right now we just completed a free pilot review of some manuscripts, which worked out very, very well. And I'd like to thank the 6 people who offered that. None of them are in this room, so unfortunately I can't call you out. But anyway, we are launching this pilot now, actually, right after this meeting, where we're starting with the genomics technology. So we will have experts in the genomics fields, co-directors, and their staff, if they have the bandwidth, to actually help provide reviews of these manuscripts before they go to publication to make sure that they meet high rigor and reproducible standards. If you're interested in becoming a technical reviewer for AACR, you can find me or any one of our CCO members. We are walking around with QR codes that you can scan, and you can fill out the interest form where you can tell us what your technology is that you're an expert in, your expertise, and then we can contact you if there is a review for you that is right up your alley. So thank you, and enjoy the session.
Would anyone like any more time to download? Are we good on that? Okay. So I'm going to switch gear here. Okay. Before I get started, I just wanted to acknowledge everyone here and say thank you for your time today, because I know this isn't the only session that's happening right now. I know that's great for ABRF to have multiple interesting sessions that kind of pull us in different directions. So just want to acknowledge that and say thank you for being here, and I hope that this will be an informative talk and workshop. I say that also because I see, in the room there's people who have kind of trained me on, things like iLab and core operations. So I'm in no way necessarily an expert on this. I'm just kind of providing my perspective and my experiences for what we with Seattle Children's into what's possible. So my name is Larson. I'm the Director of Operations for Shared Research Resources at the Research Institute at Seattle Children's. I have Pat here joining me, and we're missing one person today who couldn't make it due to an injury. So I'm going to be partly presenting on his slides. That's Rajesh Uthamanthil. He's our Chief Medical Officer and AVP for Research Innovation. Quick poll of hands. How many people were at the morning session on metrics for core facilities? Good. That's kind of what I was hoping for, because as we all know, metrics are only really possible by having data to support and audit-proof the metrics that we have for our cores. And that data can come from many different places. If you're like me, you have iLab, which is the only place where you really have access to data that not only shows how your cores are being used, but also what grants users are charging to. It's the same place for that type of data. You also have an ERP system. We're at Seattle Children's actually transitioning towards Workday on Wednesday, wish us luck. That's one place where you'll get information about your expenses and what categories those can fall into. So that's another database. And then, if you take a step back, there's also so much data out there that can't neatly be captured, or at least doesn't fit neatly into a bucket. And in this morning session on metrics, we talked about, or some people brought up questions about surveys, and some people have been effectively using them, some not. And there's really the potential that we're trying to drive home today is, that kind of data that's hard to capture. What are ways that you can go about doing that? So is it even possible to get a user's input on your core just for 1 second after they leave your facility, whenever they're done using a piece of equipment? So, and what would that then do over time to see, if one particular user is having, poor experiences versus a good experience, or if they normally have a good experience, but there's one that was bad. Having some sort of system that can trigger some sort of notification or way to kind of follow up on that isn't going to wait a year until you've done that survey or followed up with a PI the next time that you meet with them. So that's just one aspect of this, really. A lot of us also run equipment-heavy cores, so if there's a reason why it failed QC, there's a lot of implications for that in terms of people who have already prepped samples to run them that day. What is that experience for them, and how can we have a system where if something does pass or fail a QC check, obviously you want to understand why that happened, but then take different avenues of action to address that and communicate that and learn over time how frequently things like that have happened. So these are all just kind of basic examples of core operations that I'm sure we're all familiar with, but what I'm hoping that you'll be leaving today with is an idea of how we can go about capturing that data and laying the foundation for incorporating more AI-driven decisions based on that data. So that's a lot for one slide. That's only my intro slide. So taking a step back, we all know what shared resources do. Shown here are the different strategic directions of core facilities and which areas that they support, and many of us are familiar with. We expand our home institutions level expertise across the board by training and offering consultations. We offer high-end equipment that bolsters recruitment for both faculty and visiting scientists. Efficiencies are gained when you increase usage on maybe just one or two equipment that's in your core, instead of having many of the same type of equipment in different departments that are all on contracts. No one really wants that. Grant proposals are more successful. And if you can all accomplish this, you lead to what makes shared resources so valuable to leadership, and that's a sustainable, innovation-focused body of research infrastructure that wouldn't have otherwise been possible, or at least much more expensive to run in the alternative. So if you're also in this morning's session on metrics, you heard a reference to this spider web, which I'm sure many of us have seen before. It's about a decade old now. And it outlines the different directions that cores are kind of pulled into to make sure that they're adapting to changing needs over time. And I appreciate also the balance that you'll notice in this graphic, how, it's hard to say which one's more important for a person like myself in operations to be focused on, especially when you think about the business of science and shared research resources. So, these are all areas that, are tested over time, and there's still areas to improve upon them. That's kind of just the way life is. But I'm hoping that also as we look to the future and how we can develop, the intelligent core, if you can call it that, that'll be one that can easily respond to questions as they come up. Many different elements of this diagram that you see here. So it wouldn't be an AGRAPH presentation, especially not this year, without some sort of AI-driven image. I did not, when I was prompting this, ask it to make it visible for people who are 40 feet away in a large room and off to the side. So I'm happy to just kind of walk through that. But what I'm conceptualizing here is the digital central nervous system of a core facility. So you have your senses. I don't want to walk away from the microphone. But that's where you have iLab. All the kind of areas where you can get data captured, whether it's iLab, PowerPoints, that's going to be one that we focus on heavily today. PowerApps and AI-driven automated form entry. What does that enable for a core? And then one thing that I've, in my experience, been modestly successful at is if you can connect that to the larger system through perhaps an API, that'll then connect that data that has been inputted to the sensory system into the nerves, which is our SharePoint repository. Then kind of the world is yours to play with that data in ways that wouldn't have normally been possible in something like iLab. And then you have your immune system. That's the governance and compliance. How can you make sure that this is something that will be still, audit-proof, policy-friendly and compliant, and especially if you're working with animals, adhering to all the different regulatory guardrails that are out there. And if you can do that, you'll develop the brain that can really make these informed decisions, leveraging AI where you're comfortable with, and, co-pilots, a lot of us are increasingly familiar with that. There's a lot of natural language. You don't need to be someone who's familiar with coding to really get great insights for how to look into your data, how to visualize it, etc. And then also, lastly, the reflexes. So what happens when something goes wrong? You'll have the system that can immediately pinpoint that and then trigger a number of responses when a turnaround time is much longer than it should have been, or some sort of digital checkpoint for a quality control system didn't notice something that's causing an instrument to fail. So it's something that should be responsive to, when things go wrong, being able to quickly adapt. So I'm going to start, again, taking a step back into perhaps what's considered, at least for me, one of the more complex programs out there that's at the Seattle Children's Research Institute and many others is preclinical research, because you can see what that involves. Anything that involves preclinical operations, it's your senses. It's husbandry, actual animal care, but also billing and technical services. And you can see all the different bubbles here that you can think of each having its own database to kind of collect that information. But how is it all going to integrate together when you have an incident, and how does that maybe pertain to the facility that the incident occurred in? If there's a cage wash issue that's been somehow related to technical services, these do overlap in many ways. And what we're moving away from, and this is something that I'm borrowing from Raj, is kind of the traditional methods of how we would check in on sick and injured animals. There's the paper actual posting on each cage where it says, the vet check status, and that's the paper trail of the animal core. But also really complex, hard to navigate databases where you kind of have to an individual photo for, say, like a PI with medical health records, individual work books per technician, and that helps with their caseload management. But then there's the actual handwriting, which is really one of my least favorite things to have to work through when I have to read someone else's handwriting. And that there's a significant chance for error when that occurs, especially on a complex form like this, where we have our room, area, and equipment logs and checklists. It's easy to see if something was missed or not checked off when it should have been. And then this is just one sheet that will multiply quadratically over time. So it really, presents an issue for the core. So this is where we've moved to PowerApps. And again, in this example, I'm referring to the OAC, this Office of Animal Care, where both our users and our staff can easily just have on their phone a way to go about getting all this data in a much more user-friendly format. This is the view of it on your phone, and it still contains all that data in the background. You just don't see it here unless you really drill in. But it's just one way that you can go about maintaining the integrity of the preclinical core, but by using the PowerApps. And I'm going to go a little bit further and kind of it's a very complex system. Obviously, you need to have the incident log be related to the room list. You need to have the mortality log related to the species list, so that when you do have this PowerApp, it's going to be deriving from interactions with different databases that contain all this information. And it looks kind of messy and complicated here, but it's really something that when you actually interact with day to day, it looks like this. It's very simple, but what it's doing is pulling from a network of different databases that are kind of talking to each other in different ways. And again, with the use of PowerApps further, you can do what you want to analyze the data further. That's the animation there. And again, you can still get all the necessary data. And this is, again, just a couple of screenshots of showing what historically had been on those paper logs. But you can kind of drill down into, room, mouse, species, the date. It's pretty plain to see here. But what does moving to PowerApps do? It gives you mobile access for point of use, and that's going to really help with live data capture, getting the data immediately when that activity happens. So that's going to really decrease time delays. It's got a customizable user interface, so if something's not working or if something needs to be highlighted more than it is, you can change how that's presented to the user without losing any data. So that's going to really make it easy for people to use. And it involves sharing commonly used databases, which is going to really reduce error reduction. For me, and I think you're going to hear a lot about it today, is SharePoint, because we're talking kind of from the lens of Microsoft. And that goes a long way in kind of aiding your administration and the efficiencies that you can gain without having to worry about too many errors from manual entry, whether it's written or typed in. It'll really go a long way as long as it's just pulled from data and you just have a drop-down list, select it, and then go from there. It can also introduce automation. I'm modestly familiar with Power Automate workflows, but also there's other areas of automation that can be incorporated into this. So that kind of helps go a long way in reducing bias. If one person, depending on the type of data they're having, maybe doesn't use it the way that they should, if you can integrate automation into this, that'll go a long way in reducing that. But also, at the end of the day, will also significantly reduce workload when so many things are running in the background. And then what you're going to end up with at the end is a centralized area of collated data that you can then use for real-time tracking and visibility and accessibility. I spent so many times, and I hope it's not the case for everyone else in this room, where if you wanted to run a report, you have to manually download it, clean the data yourself, save it away from CSV to Excel, and then use it to then visualize or maybe make a pivot table. But this is something that will go away from that, so you don't have to, every time you have to have an advisory committee meeting, you have to kind of redo everything. It's just a one-stop shop where you can go and look at these key metrics that you've defined previously for your core, but are now able to capture so much faster. So this is a couple examples of that, where you can see, in the case of the preclinical core, all the different areas that you need to be attentive to, whether it's the mortality log, the vet checks, all of it, it's now available in a way that is much more easily to interpret and filter and work with in a way that hadn't been before. So moving a little more to an iLab focused talk, I guess. Can I get a show of hands for anyone that does not use iLab? Okay. So I assume then the inverse is that the rest of you do use iLab. So hopefully this will be understandable. If you use StrataCore, the same concept applies. But what I'm going to be referring to here specifically is iLab. And for us at Seattle Trojans, and I imagine this is the case for everyone, if you want to use a core, you have to use iLab. But iLab is a great tool for billing and getting, like I said, it's the one-stop shop where you can see how users are charging to a core using a specific grant. But what it's limited in is project management. You see the request status is either waiting for review, in progress, or completed. But there's a lot that happens between in progress and completed that iLab is just not really suited for. And again, what you lack through that is the lack of real-time insight into what drives a core, what might be delaying a project from one lab versus another. You're not really going to get that through iLab. So what we have this opportunity now through the power tools that we're going to talk about today is to leverage their capabilities to increase not only your own staff's visibility into the core requests, but also users. They want to see, think about turnaround time. If they submit a sample, they're going to want to have a really good sense of when they're going to get results and data back, instead of just waiting for that email that they might get, lost in a number of emails that come into them that day. So it's a really great opportunity then to address, at least for us, what was a key demand for one of our cores to get turnaround time data, just so people know. It's better to know that it's going to take a week than not know at all. You might lose a lot of trust in that core. But then if you're also introducing something in addition to iLab, one thing that I've been very careful about is demonstrating the value of this, because what you're doing is introducing not only iLab, but also now there's this other tool that people are going to have to go to look at where their request is and how they can interact with the core. So something to be mindful of. This picture here was taken from our histology core. I imagine a lot of labs have something like this. It's great to see, in real time where things are at. But again, subject to your best friend's handwriting capabilities and things. You can't really use this beyond just looking at it. You can't really analyze it in a way that's going to really help you. So what I have laid the groundwork for, and I've talked about in the past, is, again, iLab, it really is this one-stop shop where not only you have this information, but you have, if you're like us, a pretty complex form that some people like filling it out, some people don't. This captures all the nitty-gritty details. In this context, our histology core for the types of samples that are being submitted, the types of processing that they want to have happen to them. So there's a lot of data here. So if you think about it, for every time they put in a request to the histology core, they have to add this data. Then that's a lot for us to use. And what's great about this is if you can connect the API to iLab, you get this data. And then once you can load that into a SharePoint list, then again, the world's your oyster to see how you want to play with that data. So this is where, and I'm not, at least not at this point of the workshop, I'm just going to go a little bit into an overview of what that has involved for us. So what you can do once you create everyone, if you've used iLab, there's an administrative tab where you can see there's an API category, you can create a token and a client ID. If you do that, then you can establish a Power Automate flow. And this is just what you're seeing is kind of like the bare bones of the flow, where you can see that's something that we have run daily. I have it run for us every day at 5. And what this is doing is calling the API to get the data from iLab every day at 5 o'clock. And it's going to contain all this information, not only about the type of samples and what they want to have done with it, but it's going to have the PI, the user's name, their email, there's department affiliation, all these things that, if you think about it, are going to be really helpful for you to kind of report out on the metrics of your core and how it's performed over time. So going into the details of what that actually involves, I think of Power Automate being the linchpin in this process, because it directly is going to call the data from iLab through the API. You can set the parameters such as the frequency, and you can define where you want it to put that data. For us, it's a SharePoint list. And then you can set other limits and other requirements. So for example, if we're having this run every day at 5, we don't want it to have the same data that's already there be added duplicatively into our SharePoint list, so you can make sure that it only adds data that is changed or is new, and if that request has already been in that SharePoint data, what about it has changed so you can update it. So if you're successful in that, this is what it looks like, partially redacted, because this is what I gathered from our core. This is basically all of the iLab data in a SharePoint list. So instead of having to run a manual report out of iLab, which I still do from time to time, instead you have an automated process developed where you have everything regarding the service ID, the lab name, but also those other details that we saw for the histology core, whether you wanted embedding done or immunohistochemistry, all those things that you can ask. And it's not just histology, of course, it's anything that you want to have a custom form for. You can have that then living in a SharePoint list. And then what you can do, and I don't have it shown in this deck, what this integrate button does at the top there is that's where you can integrate PowerApp. So you can directly have this data then point towards a PowerApp, where if you want to have your histology core see, it's restricted for them to see only their requests, but you're going to be able to have them drop down in, select which requests that they're inquiring about, and then we can see our core staff will then be able to enter, okay, yes, sectioning is done, embedding is done, exhaustion is done. Then they can, see kind of the percent completion rate, either based on how many steps that the request is involved, how many samples they submitted to the core. All that's possible through PowerApps. So, kind of thinking back to what we were trying to do here regarding an intelligent core or kind of like a digitized core is what you have is transparency across the spectrum. And what I mean by that is you have really great insight to all the different data points that we all experience them day to day working in a core, but you can see them now in a much more accessible way that you can use to develop your core's operational metrics in terms of turnaround time, throughput rates. If you're an iLab user, you can assign certain services to one person in your core versus another, so you can see how productive that person has been over time. It's highly customizable, and you can use this customized system to regularly sync with that iLab data that you're calling from the API. So for us, what we're able to do is meet key user needs, which for us was like that active real-time detailed request processing status update that iLab doesn't provide. Once you get their email, it's easy to communicate out to them for key developments in their project. And if they are interested in using their phones for this, then they can get even a push notification if their project's ready or if there's something that they need to answer from the core. Because again, it's very mobile friendly. But this does take time. It has taken probably more time than it should have for us because early on we didn't have Pat. But it takes time to test it, make sure that it does address those pain points that the users are bringing to the core. And people have different opinions on what they see as value when they work from the core, especially the users. They might be open to using their own phone for work, they might not, so something to be aware of. And then one thing that's really exciting for us now is how can we incorporate generative AI and Copilot into this to further increase accessibility to the core, but also to decrease the burden on users and staff who use the system that's additive to using iLab. So one thing that I'm really interested in exploring now is integrating PubMed into our Copilot. So if someone wants to, they're curious about some sort of panel design in the flow core, they can see, initiate that through us, but then if they work through the Copilot, they can, tell the Copilot to ask PubMed for how they've developed that panel on their end, and then kind of further answer questions, but also having it be aware of the different policies and guardrails that we have in the core. It can also be responsive to that too. So at the end of the day, this is still what our core looks like in the histology lab because it's hard to move away from this, but it is something that I see as kind of the, thinking, it's hard to think 5 to 10 years into the future for what a core looks like, but if you can have this environment of tools available to you that can capture all these different nitty-gritty data points that had previously been so hard to do cohesively, then you can, I think increasingly we're going to have to, at least myself, going to have to look to AI to answer questions. But if we can give that AI, true data from our core within certain guardrails, that's really going to help the nervous system of the core that I touched on previously. So that's my presentation for now. I know we're going to kind of transition to Pat and a little bit of the workshop elements, but I'm happy to answer questions for what we've done at Seattle Children's, and I don't think we've solved anything yet, because I'm also curious to see what other people here have done themselves, or questions that they might have, so we can partner and see how. But at the end of the day, I want my cores to be, responsive to faculty needs, but also, easy for my core staff to work in, and something that they can look forward to without having to look at paper logs and resolve errors that shouldn't have happened, things of that nature. So quick kudos to the team who helped kind of work through this with me. Like I said, it's been quite the project, but something that I think I'm eagerly interested in incorporating across the board for my cores, not only histology or animal care, but we're going to hear also how we can incorporate more of this into the flow core. So, yeah, thank you.
Anyone who came in late, go ahead and email me at SCHTest1907. That's the year Seattle Children's started, at gmail.com, and I'll send you a direct link to the class materials. Need to plug in my computer because it's low. I see one right here. All right. So a lot of people are doing that. Show of hands, how many people came here to learn how to Is this it? Yeah, that's it. All right, so what I've got is a place where I've uploaded a whole bunch of documents for y'all. And for those that came in early, you're gonna actually see the documents. For those that are coming in late, I'll send you the link at break time, and then hopefully you'll be able to catch up. I am an IT girl. I got my computer science degree in 1986. I started with robotics at the Naval Undersea Engineer Warfare Station. There's only 2 places in the world, or in our country, that produces torpedoes. One is on the East Coast, one is on the West Coast. Flew in all the way from Seattle. Both Aaron and I were really off on our time here. But at any rate, I've done industries from obviously the government. I worked in the cruise line industry. I did a point of sale system where back in the 90s, you used to have cash on board ships. And we were the first with Holland America where you could actually charge to your room. And my boss goes, we didn't have any test beds back then, testing at all. And she goes, how long is the bills going to run? And I go, by my estimates, I've been running them every night for the past 3 nights. Probably about 10 hours. She goes, well, you know C, rewrite it in C. So I had like 2 days to rewrite it in C. So over these decades, programming languages have gotten more accessible to everyone. And that's what PowerApps allows you to do. It allows you to simply create an application that would have taken an IT engineer, several months to do. And then from there, it'll come with an out-of-the-box version of PowerApps, and then you can start. So customization for your particular situation. And then we're going to talk about Power Automate, which is allowing you to then trigger workflows instead of people sending you a whole bunch of emails. Now you'll be very specific on where those emails will go, or a chat message, or an approval process. There's so many connectors in there. You can do so many different things with a particular business process. So those are the big advantages. Now, as far as dashboards over here in the room, we have, has anybody used Power BI? Yeah. So it's all about basically getting your data into a SharePoint list, or back in the days, a SQL table, which SharePoint lists are basically SQL tables, and containing all that data. So that then you can start putting logs, you can do dashboards, you can do trending, but the first step is getting that data into the system. All right, we talked about our nervous system, and that's pretty much Raj's depiction of our whole session today. He brought that up as a core philosophy, as a nervous system. The papers, they create a lot of chaos, a lot of logs, and spreadsheets. Sometimes people attach them to an email, and then somebody updates it, and then you get another attachment, an Excel spreadsheet, and you're trying to reconcile those across multiple people. It becomes really tedious. So we're going to move into structured records using a SharePoint list. And then from there, you'll be able to log the data and then use for your instruments different statuses or states of that instrument. And then people can actually come and see what's going on, or they can basically look for the data for themselves. You give them the Power App, now they are looking for it. You're not pushing data, they're pulling data. So big change for you guys. So the goals today that I've got are being able to connect with your customers, real-time status, expanding services. So eventually when you have the core or the base structure of your app, then you'll be able to expand the services. So one of the things that Erin has tasked me to do is to look at how to get PubMed in there, how to create a survey automatically. And then also when you're at the instrument and you run into a problem, how to troubleshoot that instrument. And having that all within one app, one place for them to go. Visualizing information for dashboards too. Then Erin's team and Siva can look at an instrument and say that one of the parts that we've got is warming up the laser. It should take 20 minutes, but maybe it's taking 22, maybe it's taking 25. So getting that actual data, so when they're checking through on the PowerApp, warming up started, it hasn't completed yet, then they can start looking at trends. Maybe this particular instrument needs some service. Maybe it's coming to the end of life and now they have to project out to get a new instrument in place. So this is where it becomes valuable when you know what the data you want to collect and how to collect it, and making it easy for the people who to use the app. So what is the Power Platform? Do you guys have Microsoft Word? How many people have Microsoft Word? Show of hands. Great. How many people are using Microsoft Teams? Show of hands. Fantastic, because that's what I'm going to have you guys do, is open up your Microsoft Teams, and we're going to create a list in your Teams environment. So while I'm talking, if people who want to follow along and do the workshop, start going in and going into your Teams. All right, PowerApps is basically a tool within the Microsoft family. It allows you to create an application, embed business processes, and be able to call workflows. PowerApps replace the Excel. Staff can enter information consistently in fields, no longer free text formats, but they can use choice fields. They can submit it, and then if there's a particular business process you want to happen on the other end, that can be activated. Power Automate, you can think of it as workflows, right? So when data appears, somebody can be notified, or a chat message can be sent into the Microsoft Teams, or you might need to update a particular record. So all of that has been written now in a language that, you know, for me back in the 80s, you know, you had to take a whole class. Now they're making it so much easier with Power Automate and Power Apps. All right, so we talked about what you're going to be needing for this session. You're going to need an account. You're going to need access to this URL, makepowerapps.com. It'll prompt you for your credentials, which would be your company you're associated with, and log into that. If you have already downloaded my files from the class materials, then we'll move on to the next step. If you haven't, I'm going to go and go over there and send you the link. Then we're going to go into Microsoft Teams. And now we're going to go in. This is how easy it is to make a list from an Excel spreadsheet. And we're going to use the CSV file that I dropped in the class materials to create a list. And then we're going to browse it in the browser. Pretty easy. You guys have any questions? Okay. Yeah. Let's go over to, okay, email me there if you need to. And now we're going to build the instrument log. That's the example we're going to do today. So let me get anybody's session they need to get the email. Okay, I got a couple here. So Jessica, let me get you there. Oops. I tried to figure out how to do this earlier with the resources people, and supposedly you were able to go in and download it, but I couldn't figure out how to do that. So that's why I just created this one location and then just giving people access to it. And then you'll be able to all right, one more here, I think. All right. And then, sorry, Jessica, I drafted yours and did not send it out because I accidentally pasted the wrong thing in there. All right. So, it's pretty easy to build. We're going to go in there, we're going to create a SharePoint list, we're going to create a Power App, and we're going to create Power Automate. Okay? You can connect to any kind of data with Power Automate. It doesn't have to be a SharePoint list. If you're still using Excel, you could connect to Excel. If you have a different data source, you could connect to Dataverse, you could connect to SQL, you can connect to Oracle. Huh? Oh. So Power Apps can connect to all different kinds of data sources. We're going to show you SharePoint list, but if you have an Excel, you want to connect to an Excel and you want Power Automate to be able to give a nice, beautiful front end to that, you can still do that. You can connect to a data source, like a Dataverse, which is another Microsoft structure. You can also connect to a SQL database. You can connect to an Oracle database. So there's multiple databases you can connect to using Power Apps. It's agnostic to that. Some of them are premium, so you might have to have a premium license for those connectors. All right. We're going to go in and create a SharePoint list, generate an app, explore the screen, and then test the app. All right. You go into SharePoint and you do create a new list. How do we get to SharePoint? In Microsoft Teams. You're going to connect into Microsoft Teams. I think I'm too close to this one. All right. So you're going to connect into Microsoft Teams, and you're going to go in and let me go ahead and play my video because it's not showing up here. Let's see. You're going to click on the documents, and you're going to click on show in SharePoint. And then you'll get up into the SharePoint environment. All right, so here you are in Teams. You're going to go to your whatever channel you're in. You're going to come up, and you're going to click on Shared. These are all your document libraries, right? Then you're going to come down there, and it's going to say Open in SharePoint. That will take you up to the cloud, and you'll get into SharePoint. From there, we're going to go in, and we're going to go to our site contents, which is kind of like what I call the the back door behind everything. And you're going to click on Site Contacts, which you can get from the wheel cog up there. And then you're going to click on New. And from here, you're going to click on New, the list. And then we're going to come down to that CSV. From that CSV file, we're going to click on Upload a file. And the stuff that you guys downloaded earlier, you'll see a CSV called Sunday Intelligence. And it's going to load in automatically the CSV file. And then you'll click on Next. Just go ahead and call it Instrument Log. And show it on the site navigation and click Create. Yes. All right, lots of good people asking great questions. I'm coming around. I'll also show you how to delete it if you don't want to leave it there. Are you good? Okay, great. Everybody else good over here? Okay. Everybody good over here? All right, I'm going to go ahead and play the video again, just in case people need to see it. And the video is in the class materials, so you can always come back to the video to see it. So I think there's some additional understanding that it's hard because Microsoft did this, right? Microsoft created Microsoft Teams, and they also have OneDrive, and they have SharePoint, and actually it was 2 different teams, right? So Teams is all about and also they have document libraries. And that's pretty much what Teams is doing. But you can also have a list, which is a little bit different than a document library. You can think of Excel. You know what tables are in Excel? So a list is like a table, but it's available to be security trimmed. So Excel, not easy to security trim that you can't see this row in Excel. But at list, you can do that. You can say that the person who created that list item is the only person that can see it as a member to the site. So that's what lists are. It kind of like takes of a particular database, right? Everybody, SQL databases, you have tables. Additional functionality that comes along with SQL comes with SharePoint lists. So like Access, right? Access with a small module that was kind of like SQL databases, but you didn't need a whole DBA and a DA. You could create your own table structures and relationships to those data. Correct. All right. So all of the people who wanted to create a list were able to create a list. All right, great. No, one more, hang on. All right, so the next thing is even easier. Yes? Now, we're going to show you this very powerful thing called PowerApps. PowerApps also allows you to selectively choose what's going to be on the form and be able to pull in other data from other locations too. So like iLab, right? We've got a workflow that runs. It's pretty, runs every morning, and then you can start incorporating data from that area too. Some of the PowerApps that I have are like over like 10 different screens. I'm going to show you a basic PowerApp. After that, you can start trying out other things. So let's go ahead and see what we can get. Power Automate. Creating Power Automate. Bring up my video. All right. Here we go. Again, we're back in the shared. We go back, and you guys are already in SharePoint. But just in case you get home and you don't know how to start all over, this is available in the class materials. Now, you go to your instrument log. You got your data right here, right? You go up to the 3 dots. It's got this word integrate. Power Apps. I'm going to reduce it just a little bit here. So again, the 3 dots, integrate, Power Apps, create an app. That's it. It's going to take everything in that list, and it's going to create your own version of the Power App. And then you can start building in business processes to that. So it takes a little bit of time. See, as it's starting to render here, It comes in, it gives you a little like, hey, welcome to PowerApps. It's going to show you how to preview, meaning play the app. I got that. And this is what it's coming with. You have a browser, you have the detail, and you have the edit screen. It built it all for you. It's kind of like Excel. Have you guys done that in Excel? You built a form in Excel. You can do that as well. But PowerApps, you can do that so that you can make it more custom and more options. So I clicked up here, clicked on save. I'm going to go ahead and save it as instrument log app. Save. And then I'll go ahead and publish it out, because you can work on this and you can have smaller versions. And if you're ready to publish out to your larger group, then you can send it out. And what's great is that you load up PowerApps on your phone and you'll see a list of all the PowerApps that your company has. So I'm just going to put in here something meaningful: instrument log app, create, view, edit. All right, so everybody go to your log list and go in there and click on the app. Integrate. So PowerApps is an application, and then behind that you have a SharePoint list, right? So people need 2 access points. They need access to the app, and then they need access to the actual data, to the list. So you share the application, and then as a site owner, you manage membership, and you can give edit, you can give them full control. So you control the narrative on how much access you want to give. Yes, any questions? Everybody published? Everybody built their first PowerApp? Publish is all the way on the right. Yep. Yep. Yes, you can add it. So add an app at the top.
And then look for Power Apps. I don't have it, which is weird. Okay.
So go into a team.
Oh,
Go into where you were.
here.
Okay. And now click on more, add an app,
Oh,
and say Power Apps.
no.
There's workflows, planner. Let's see. I'll have to come back to you. All right. So let's add it to a team. All right. The other way you can do it is if you're on Yes, you have to publish. Yes. Okay. There is a share. Let me see if I can. I'm going to have to log into Teams on this one. I did not do that, so let me do that. All right. Okay, I'm going to log into Teams over here on this computer. All right. Let's see here. Is this going to work for me? Yes. All right. So while it's generating for me to get into, what you can do now is you can go into your team area. And you can say right up here, add an app. Should be able to find Power Apps. Some folks I noticed didn't have that option. I'm going to work with them at the break. We're gonna take a quick break shortly here, and then we're going to come back and we're going to work on workflows, and we're going to see a little bit of an AI agent connected to PubMed. So you'll come in here and you'll click on Power Apps. And from there, you should be able to select the Power App that you just created. It comes up with a list. Here is my inventory. And I click on Save. And now my team, they don't have to look for the Power App anywhere. It's automatically in their team. And then it's available there. Okay, anyone have any questions? Okay, we'll take about a 10-minute break. For anyone who needs additional help, stay behind and then come back in about 10 minutes. And we're going to jump into workflows and look at the iLab connector and then the API or the AI agent piece that is connected to PubMed.
well, I think this is more of like a living, Tableau. What I use this is visualization. Yeah, so it's basically just like it incorporates the features like an app. Like you can give it actions to do things that Tableau won't, because Tableau is, at least for when I use it, it's just a dashboard of data that I can visualize. But an app, you can trigger activities like send an email or send a push notification, um, and it's designed to be more mobile friendly as opposed to Tableau, I guess. When I use Tableau or Power BI, I want like a full screen available to me. Yeah.
How we doing?
You're doing great.
All right.
Keep it up.
All right. I think most people have built their first Power App, published their first Power App, connected their Power App to either their team or even their SharePoint site. Some people don't have Power Apps in their teams. Who still doesn't have Power Apps in their teams? Sometimes you're looking at a chat. Now, it's very confusing because a chat looks similar to a team, but a team has more components that you can use. A chat is just like a hallway conversation. Think of a Microsoft Teams as a whole, like, I guess a whole meeting room with a whole bunch of different command center type of applications that you can associate with that team. It comes usually so you'll be able So it usually comes with a group, and you'll be able to basically email that group. You'll be able to actually put in messages into different channels. So a chat usually starts off as a casual conversation, and then if it involves a whole, needs a whole team setup, that's when you should go and do the teams. And that's when you'll see the app availability to add in Power Apps. Okay? Any questions? Okay. So now we've entered into the area of an app. And people were asking, when are you going to use it? Or how are you going to get people to use this app? And you're absolutely right. You have to get what's the with them, right? What's in it for them. Some of it is the fact that, I just turned off the other one. But maybe that one might work better because... Hello? Yeah, because my voice is so high. When I was younger, we used to have answering machines. Anybody remember those? I would leave the end of the message. I said, okay, I'll call you back later, or call me back later. Bye, Pat. And then it'll go, oh, your message has been erased. Because my voice hit that tone. It was horrible. Okay, now, the app screen, we're going to actually jump into your app, and you're going to see different parts of the screen before we jump into the workflows, because I was just a little bit too ahead of things. You're going to see that you get a browser screen, you're going to get a detailed screen, and you're going to get an edit screen already built for you. These are generally the consistent things that people need to see. Now, how to get them to use this app, the what's in it for them, would be like if they're at an instrument and they scan the instrument and they have a problem with the instrument. Then instead of this list that we just create, which is logging the current status, which is the view, browse, you could actually create another screen which says details on troubleshooting that instrument. And then you could have 3 or 4 answers. And then maybe at the bottom, you have a button that says email a technician. So that's how you get them into using the app themselves. And then at the end, which is something that Raj really wants, is how was your experience with the instrument today? And then we're going to build in there, it was a good experience, not good, or very happy. And then they can give you some feedback on why it wasn't good. So then you can get that directly back to your core team, and then they can start resolving those issues. All right, so now let's look at the detailed screen. Probably going to be one of these tabs. If not, you can always type in makepowerapps.com, or you can always click on this waffle. And on the waffle, you get all the things that you have access to. Okay? You've got, some people might have Copilot, PowerPoint, OneDrive, OneNote, Teams, and more apps. And in there, you'll see Power Automate. So if you ever forget, you don't know the URL, that's the easiest way to get there. So I want you to open up your app. And in here, you'll see all the apps that are available. And I don't see mine. Oh, thank you. I can't read sideways, right? Oh, and there's a ton of things in here. I mean, you're going to be like, okay, I lost my mouse. Okay. Is it this one? All right, there we go. Perfect. There's two things here. One is this button, meaning play it. The other one is to edit. So we're going to click into edit. All right, it's going to load it up, and now we're going to edit the application, because out of the box, you got a couple of things, but maybe you want to understand what it's doing, or maybe you want to change something. So there are multiple environments, and you'll see that right now I'm in the default environment, and then you might have your own personal environment too. All right, let's look at some code, because the components, there are different components that are making up this screen. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. All right. We did a PowerApp. The controls. You have screens. You have different controls. What would be different controls you could have? A radio button, a drop-down list. People love radio buttons. Drop-down list, a little toggle, yes, no, a little choice list. Okay. Then within those controls, you have different properties. Properties meaning like what color they are. You know, maybe you have a branded site, you want those to be different colors. Maybe you want it to, you know, be visible only when they've filled out all of the data. They can't click on save until all the data has been completed. And then you have the last thing, which is formulas, right? How many people, like in Excel, have used the if statement? Because same thing, right? That's exactly what you're going to use in here. So they make those formulas really easy to use, and they have IntelliSense that comes up. And so we're going to look at that. So on your browser screen, you'll see this layers. These are, think of it as like a tree, right? These are the layers. And in here, you're going to see screens. The browser screen, the detail screen, the edit screen. Okay? And those will automatically shift as soon as you click on a button. So a browser screen, you'll see that arrow. When you click on that, it immediately goes to the detail screen. When you click on the pencil, it'll immediately go to the edit screen. And we talked about the controls, right? There's text inputs, there's radio buttons, there's drop down, there's date pickers, there's icons, and there's buttons. So I'm going to have you go over to the browser screen. I'm going to have you click on this icon so you can see what it does. And what it does is there's a property called onSelect. So when somebody selects that button, it's going to go out and it basically says it's going to refresh the data. That's all it's going to do. So everybody go over there and see what a formula looks like. Now, you could call other things or have it do things. Yeah. So now that's a different icon. Whoops. Control Z. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, just. So when you click on this one here, now it's gone into, this is the icon to refresh, and it says on select, refresh the instrument log. Okay, now go ahead and look at the other properties associated with that. And you'll see the drop-down menu. You'll see lots of different things that you can start to customize about it. You can change the color. You can change what it's doing. You can change the visibility. So these are all things that you can do. And this is what usually Aaron will say, oh gosh, we don't want to show them that until they've done this, right? So that's when you're starting to add in the business rules on top of your basic PowerApp screen. All right, now in the formula we saw refresh. You can also check to see if something is blank, then you can say the title is default. You can also get today, which is the date and time. You can also get the user. You can look at the on select. You can look at on change. And the other one is submit form. What do you think submit form does? What does it do? Saves the changes. Yes, submit the form. So that's how when you look on edit form, so everybody go over to your edit. So it says submit the form. Now, the beauty about this is now you can either do another workflow. Maybe after the submit, you want to kick off a workflow that doesn't email. So we're going to do that next. Come over here under these three dots over here, and you'll see Power Automate. In Power Automate, That's your workflow. And Power Automate is really cool because it can be called from a Power App. It can be run daily. You can tell a Power App to run when an item changes on a SharePoint list. So the Power Automate is very powerful in acting on a condition or a state of change. So we're going to create a new, does everybody see that? Create a new flow. Notice I called it flow because it was previously called flow, but then I changed it to Power Automate. Now what's nice, Microsoft gives you a whole bunch of templates out there. So you don't even have to spend a lot of time coding or even thinking about what you need to add. It's basically, have you guys all written like a flow chart with those old, you used to have that stencil with the squares and the triangles and the action items and the condition and the branching? Workflows is much the same. So we are going to look at this one that says, what do you guys want to do? Do you want to send an approval or do you want to notify a user in Teams? Send approval. Okay, let's do that. So click on that. It's going to ask you to name it. So what I always do is I kind of use part of the name of what I'm working with, followed by what the action is. Ability to get to the automate. Everybody good? Okay. Next. It's pretty easy. It's going to do most of the work for you again. It's going to ask for an approval title, an approver email, and a requester email. But it's all pre-populated because it created a template, and it's using the template. So now you say create the workflow, and it takes a little time for it to create. And now it's loaded, and it's available, and it's going to show up here. You didn't even have to go in and drag little action items because you used the template and it already did it for you. Super, super easy. So that means, how can I use it? Let's go in here and let's create a button. So I'm going to insert a button. And there's my button. And right now it's sitting on top. There's multiple, you can think of it as like, have you used those image areas where you grab things and you group them together and they perform layers on an image? Similar to that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the color of the button. I'm going to make it green. I'm going to say approval. Okay. Now what do you think I need to do? Now I've created a button. I need to call a function, right? When it's doing what? That's the question. So you look over here, and you look at the different things for this particular, by highlighting it, you can see all the various things that it can do. Okay, so we've got border, we've got color, we've got disabled, we've got the mode, we've got focus, font, height, on select. So on select. So when somebody selects it, what are you going to have them do? You're going to have them call that function, which is basically the workflow. And what did we call it? We called it inventory log. You just immediately start typing. Inventory log right there at the top. Inventory log send approval dot run, meaning that's what you want it to do. Now there's a couple parameters that we need. We need an email, the to, the from, and the text. Built-in function user, that is me, the person currently logged in. It's one parentheses, open parentheses. And now I'm going to click dot, and then it tells me all the options associated with the user. And I'm not going to take the full name, I actually want their email. So I'm going to take the email. Now you can then put in the next piece, which was that who's going to approve it from, and you can put that in there. And then the last message is the text. All right, that's it. It did it all for us. We connected, we created a workflow, and now we're going to use it. It's the same person who's using it as approving it, but that's okay. Now, we're not ready to maybe publish this because we haven't really tested it. So what do you have to do? You have to run the application with the current version that you currently have. So you click on play, and now you've got the button here, and this allows you to play with the application before you're actually ready to publish it out to everybody. So we click approve, and it ran, and it sent off the approval. All right, let's go back over and stop, and let's go see the approval. Same place, make.powerapps.com. You've got the apps, now you've got flows here. So we're going to look at the flows. Okay. You'll see that this one is send approval. I did one earlier, which was post a message in Microsoft Teams. 6 minutes ago, we did one that was instant. You can click on that to look at the details of this one. And this is kind of really cool, is that this is a new piece that Microsoft allows you to do, which is to also track the savings of implementing this. So if the approval process is saving people 2 minutes per day, then you can look at the end of the year, the accumulation of savings by running this particular PowerApp and this workflow. So that's another way to do some cost-benefit analysis. You can see here right now, this particular app, it's still running because it's waiting for the approval. So we'll come in here and you can click on that particular instance and it will show you how it's running and where it's waiting. So it's basically took the PowerApp, it was called from the PowerApp, it started an approval, and then there's a condition on that approval. So it's waiting. So you can actually click on the approval and you can see that it's a standard approval and it's waiting for me to approve it. All right, so I'm going to go up and look at my approvals. And here's the activity, and here's the approval that it's waiting for. You'll see that it's pending. It's requested by me, and you're requesting an approval. And you can choose to approve or reject. You can also customize this in that particular workflow. And then you can also do more actions, which is if you want to, as the approver, you can cancel the request or reassign it to somebody else. So we do this for all kinds of approvals at Seattle Children's. One in particular is we have box. And when somebody asks for a box license, we go through it and we have an approval PowerApp form that they fill out, and then it's sent to the approval to management. Management receives it, reviews it, and then either approves it or rejects it. So we're going to go ahead and say approve. And then it's going to immediately start the workflow to continue. How long does it wait for an approval? It's normally 30 days. It'll be out there, and then after 30 days, it'll wane. It'll just say, okay, we waited 30 days, we didn't hear anything. You can also change that so that when you wait 30 days, like in one of the apps that I have is observing apps. So people come in from all over the world to observe at Seattle Children's. If you go to the Seattle Children's website, you'll fill out the PowerApp. It will go in there and request somebody to shadow, either a doctor or a nurse practitioner or someone. And then it goes to that department. So I have another list that looks up for oncology. Then it looks up the person that's responsible to approve or disapprove observations. And so they'll get an approval request, and then they can see all their approvals here as well. All right, let's go look at the PowerApp. Let's see what it did. All right. Where did you go? All right. So we knew here it was waiting for about 4 minutes, and then it ran into this condition, and it ran for 3 seconds, and it said, okay, did it approve? Yes. Then it did an adaptive card. Does anyone know what an adaptive adaptive card is. Created a card in Microsoft Teams. It's kind of like a little reminder, okay, this is what the outcome was. But you could change that to an email if you wanted to. And so it created an adaptive card in there that said it was approved. Let's go look at that. Where is it? So again, in Teams, you'll go up here, up at the left, and you'll see activity. Now what's nice is if you have Microsoft Teams already downloaded on your phone, and it's almost like, oh, what did Donchka said? It's like an immediate chat message or a notification that's sent to you. So you can see that right away. So we'll go over there. We'll click that. So we've got the workflows up here under chats, and you'll see that it posted a card in there. And not much you had to do to get this to work, because it was using a template, and there's lots of templates out there, and it just basically says your approval has been approved by Velasquez. Pretty easy. What questions do you guys have? Is this a lot? I know. We're squishing down like 3 days down into 2 hours, so it's a fire hose, I know. So, yes. Yes. Oh, yeah, no, it is actually also you got an email for this request, too. You got both. You can either go there or you can go over into the email. Let me see. Sorry. Outlook. Yeah, no, we've got, and in Outlook, and if you sent it to multiple people and one person approved it, then the whole thing approved. Or you can set it up that you've got to have all of them approved. But yeah, you get an email that says, please approve from Power Automate as well. So you get both. Right, good question. You can, with an email, you can definitely change it. In the email, you know how you always have like advanced, and you say from, and you can change the from to whoever you want it from. Yeah. And this one, you saw it flash. It said approve or denied, and then all of a sudden it flipped to the current status, meaning, oh, it's already been approved. So if you got like 4 people who need to be approving something, they don't have to worry about it because somebody already took care of it out of the 4 people. How are we doing on time? What do we have for time? Okay, and how late are we to? Okay. So why don't you guys all take about another 10-minute break. We'll come back, and I'm going to jump into the AI part, the AI agent, and to the connection. And you'll see how absolutely simple it is. Just like, I mean, I know this is a lot to think about, all the connections and stuff, and I know that there are a lot of templates there that automatically generate things for you, and trying to make them all connect in your brain, I get that. But a lot of the templates you'll find will be very easy, very useful for you, because you'll be able to create a Power Automate flow without having to jump into all those details, because you just use that template. All right, and AI is similar to that. And we'll get back into that in about 10 minutes. All right. So we've got about 40 minutes left of our time today. I know, I think I lost a lot of people. Or maybe they were full. But for those that are staying here and hanging in with us, thank you so much. We appreciate it. There's a lot of information here. And, you know, it's more of just kind of, at this point, putting puzzle pieces together. So you've got a puzzle piece that is a SharePoint list. You have a puzzle piece that is a PowerApp and a workflow. And then everybody's on this AI, you know, wagon. Last night I was having dinner with my high school friends' daughters. They're here in Pittsburgh. And I've known him since I was 14. And they asked me the question about AI. They go, is AI going to kill everybody's jobs, right? What is it going to do? Like one gal there, I said, what do you do? And she goes, I'm an accountant. I go, well, did smart books, Excel kill the accountants? No, they're still around. Because AI can consume a lot of information and can give you, you know, it's using a large language model, and it can summarize that information for you. But I said, and I don't even know if they understand this, but I said it's like when you were in high school, what was that yellow book called that kind of summarized the whole book for you? Cliff Notes, right? Right? So if you didn't read the entire information, you're not going to know it, right? If you just go by the Cliff Notes, you might be able to do it. But is it going to be able to write the code? I mean, it might be able to. And in fact, I'm working with a UW student, and she'll go in and she'll put something in PowerApps, and then we'll get together on Monday, and she'll go, well, why doesn't that work? And I'll go, well, let me explain. Okay, this isn't working because of this and that. And so it does take a little bit more of an expert to get you going. But I think once you start to understand some of the underlining what a Power App is, what a Power Automate is, you can ask AI and use it like a tool. You can ask AI to generate the whole foundation for you. You know, like if you were saying, okay, I've got this instrument log, now I want to track troubleshooting. Can you come up with a list that might be able to, you know, that I could use a design? And it will do that for you, which is great, because then you can go right in and you can jump in and you can say, okay, yep, I want this, I want that. Oh, but it hadn't thought of this, so I want that as well. So I think of AI as a tool, and it's going to be helpful in a lot of different areas, and specifically in consuming a lot of information like in PubMed. So we have 3 principles of design, right? So we talked about our data, making sure we have a list of data. We have consistent ways of putting in data into tables. We have a consistent app that gives a nice user-friendly interface. We can create buttons to then create triggers on events. Like if you wanted to do an approval, you can easily create an approval trigger. You can start adding in your instrument logs. You can start adding in and expand this out to do instrument troubleshooting. And so that's what we're going to look at next. So we talked a little bit about the workflow automation. So I want to circle back to this because I put this slide together. We talked about the triggering, when a flow starts. We talked about what it's going to do as far as logic, what's next steps. We talked about notifications, whether it's going to send you a card or an approval or an email. And then, so we talked about all of this before. You're just seeing now in a cute little diagram. Okay. Let's go over to my AI agent. Now, what I'm using, are you guys using Copilot at all? Okay, so Copilot has an agent. Let me go get that. And it's called Copilot Studio. Have you heard of that? Okay. Up Copilot here, and you'll see over on the left, and all I did was I went from the waffle and I just selected Copilot, okay? So if you have that, you should be able to see it. So basically over here on this waffle, if you have it, you have Copilot over here. Okay. So on here, I created an agent. So we'll look at the agents. So think of an agent is basically allows you to create. Copilot is like, can talk about all kinds of different subjects, right? But if you create an agent that is specific to one particular topic, like we talked about at PubMed, then you can just have it focus just on PubMed. So that's what I'm going to show you here. All agents. Let me double check here. Showing you is my development environment. So I'm not showing you any Seattle Children's information, just in case. So an agent is pretty simple. It just basically you tell it what you want to call it, your descriptions and instructions. And in fact, you can ask Copilot to create this instruction list for you. So you can say, you know, make sure you're friendly, make sure you answer, you know, in a good tone, and that's what the instructions does for you. So I'm just going to call it test agent. And you're right, this is a little different because my laptop is hooked into my own environment. And right. So now we're going to move on to configuring. I'm hoping it'll come up with the configurations that I already have. I don't see it. Oh. That should be it. Okay. All my agents should come up with the other agent, and if not, we can switch to my Seattle Children's account. Let me go ahead and do that. There's so many little hoops I have to hop through here. Just hold on. All right. So all of the agents are built in what's called Copilot Studio. And everybody here can just get a free license for Copilot Studio. The part that you need to contact your IT people for is for tokens to publish that particular agent out. So you can go in there, create an agent. Agents, the second one. And in here, I've created a couple of different agents out here. We've got the research. And I'm just going to quickly go through this so you guys can understand. Not expecting you to follow along at all. So what it allows you to do is it gives you an agent to describe the tone and the research, and then you can go over and you can select the tools that it will use. And in here is where I tell it to go in and, oops, that's the topics. one of those tools is to, I had it in here. Is it might not be in the right environment. Yeah. Let me grab it over here. So in here, I've defined the PubMed. And it's really great because PubMed gives you all of this instructions on how to do an agent or an API call. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm going in there, and it's an open API that I created. It's hosted by the the NIH, and this is the URL. And in there, it gives me information about, okay, what is the security I'm going to use? And then from there, what are the different calls I can make into PubMed? So one of the PubMeds that I can do is I can do a search, I can do a fetch, and I can do a link. So, and this is all the documentation that's in there. You give it, and this is getting deep in the code here. So you connect to this API, and then you're going in, and then you're going to go, and you're going to send it parameters into this particular search feature. This all comes in from PubMed. So trying to understand all these little pieces, you might have to work with the IT people. So let's go and test it. So they have this piece where you can test it. So let's do a search. Let's do a search on a term. Any particular term you guys have that you want to try? Answer. So you can then test the operation. It's going to tell you down at the bottom how it responded, what it found, and the tricky part now is to make this all look really nice through your end user, right? So you have to create a tool, you have to create an AI agent, you have to tell the agent how to operate and behave, what tools that it can call, and then you have to pay for play around with it. You can say, tell me about last 5 top cancer or lung cancer, right? So now it's going to go out there. First we have to connect. I always forget this part. So we go over to the tools, and we come over here. Connection. Open connection manager. This is only because it's in test. And PubMed allows you to connect. You just have to identify yourself. And you can see it's stale. So then I'll just review. And I'll connect into the AI. And there, we're now connected in. Okay. And now we'll go back. Is this that? Okay. Now I'll start a new test session. Tell me about lung cancer in the last 30 days. Okay. Going up, search PubMed, and see it went into summary. And now it went and grabbed all of those particular articles out of PubMed for you. You can tell it further to do other things, and it'll tell you what to do. Maybe you want to include molecular profiling, immune resistance, and you could say generate a CSV file from this, compare specific studies along each other. That's the part that Aaron wants to do as far as expanding the capabilities from his core into providing research assistance. So maybe next year we'll come back and we'll show you how it's done. All right, with that, I think we're open to questions. Yeah.
Can you share this agent with
I can export the agent and put it in the downloads area. Yeah. 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 It takes a lot of pieces to make it work, but the hardest part is like, if you look at the overview, some of it is just trying to understand which piece it wants, right? But once you give it to it, it's like, okay, now you're working. So yeah, like you can see, the instructions is pretty intense and pretty long. And I had Copilot done it for me. So yeah, I'm happy to share that with you. Yeah. What other questions? Huh? The tokens are an exchange back and forth. So I think Will had given you a figure on tokens. Or was it Raj? Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I could I could speak maybe in a limited fashion around tokens. My familiarity with them is restricted to iLab tokens for the API, which you generate in iLab. And what I've done is in the Power Automate flow, defined those tokens and also the client ID as a variable, so that in the flow of the Power Automate flow, it'll know to call the API using those tokens to get access to the data in iLab, and then load it to a SharePoint. Beyond that, not as sure.
Yeah, a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines reading. See how it rolls. It's kind of like when I worked in the cellular industry. Okay, back in the 2000s, before 2000, we just thought texting was going to be always free, and the real moneymaker was going to be the calls. And so nobody knew. So we'll have to see what they do, but tokens right now can run a monthly fee. So you can get a set of tokens, and then it'll be a monthly fee. So there's different plans depending on your license that you have. They change it in the last, every couple of weeks now, they keep changing it. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
If I could just add, like, the API that I have with iLab uses a premium connection, which is a monthly fee, and that's required to use an API to a database like iLab. There's others that don't require that, but a lot of databases will need that premium connection, which has a small, let's say $20 a month or something like that fee.
Yeah, so we're right on the edge. You're getting our bleeding edge right now. So we're at this point right now where we're trying to take now this agent, and if you go into PowerApps, you can actually connect an agent into PowerApps. So the hope is, and the challenge that Raj has given me, because he's like a visionary guy, right? He's got the flag and he's like a mile down the road and we're all just trying to catch up to Raj. And he said, you know, this is what I want. I want to be able to, and Siva, of course, his manager of the lab, he wants to provide researchers with more tools for the instrument, because then you can take this and you can ask what type of, I guess, what type of methods to use to launch and what instruments would you need to use to launch any of these. And then it would be able to respond based on the data that is available when we've connected to PubMed. So it gives them a little bit more than what's currently being offered. So more services.
Yeah. And if you do want to learn more specific to iLab in the API, we don't have enough time probably right now, but I'm happy to connect on that.
Yeah.
There's also the community. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and we can share with you the steps to connect the workflow to iLab, and we can share with you the AI to connect to PubMed. The pieces that you would need to go to, whoever holds the contract with these particular services, you would have to ask for a premium connection and also tokens to be able to publish. Because I'll show you, I can't publish. I'll come over here. You'll be able to make this yourself, and it'll say, can't do it. Oh, right now I still have issues. Oh, right here. I don't have a user's license that allows you to publish Copilot Studio. So for me, you can get a few people with Copilot Studio, which I believe is $200 a month. And then you can publish that out for people to use it, like your scientist. And then every time they use the app, they have to pay a token to use the app. And how many volleys back and forth and what are they paying for can change depending on who you're talking to. So when a token, and I probably changed the name already, but that's when I'm testing it here, and you'll be able to demo that to your IT people when you download it, is that, look at what we can do. How much added value is that going to be for your organization? And then perhaps then you can provide a return of cost on implementing something like this. All right, anything else? All right, well, thank you so much for hanging in there with us.
One
Aaron.
parting question. I was wondering, before anyone saw the agenda that this would be on, was anyone already thinking about using PowerApps in this way? It was already on your radar? Sounds like maybe one back there? Okay. You were doing it? Okay. Is this kind of similar to what you've experienced, what we've shown? Similar enough? Okay. Mm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I might try that because you're like me. I don't like email on my phone, but I do like Teams on my phone. So yeah, for sure.